Welcome to Ohio FFA Career Connection. Throughout this series, we will explore just a few of the vast career opportunities in Ohio agriculture. Whether you want to work on a farm or in an office, laboratory, field, or classroom, FFA prepares us to be successful. Together, we'll get to know various professionals and learn how we can jumpstart our future careers while still in FFA. Let's get started. I'm excited to learn from Dr. Lyda Garcia about her career in academia and meat science. Dr. Garcia, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Let's start about learning a little more about your background. So how did you come to work in agriculture?
Well, I'm originally from South Texas, a small town by the name called Hebronville. And at the time, there was a little less than 10,000 people or population. And agriculture is one of the main ways of living down there. And it's more of a cattle ranch, type. We have ranches there in Texas. You're either a rancher, you're a teacher, or into the small business. And so my father was a Texas cowboy, who I love to share that he had a third grade level education, but a PhD in life. Whereas my mother was a public school teacher with a master's. And so growing up, they were both my best friends. I hung out with them quite a bit. And just with time, I realized that I merged the two worlds of teaching and agriculture. But my agricultural training foundation comes from home from my father.
Now, how has your career developed over time? It started obviously on the ranch in Texas, but what did your undergrad and graduate studies look like to get you to the spot you are at Ohio State?
It just so happened that I had received a full ride to a junior college, an ag junior college, to judge livestock. I don't usually tell people my livestock background, but I was okay, in livestock judging. But that's what got me to an ag school. Because I wasn't going to college. I back then I was very comfortable staying home in South Texas, and so forth. But as life would have it, I had some doors open, and that led me to a 2-year school, Clarendon College, where not only did I judge livestock, but I also judged meat judging. When I first entered my first beef packing plant in Plainview, Texas, that is when I knew that was meant to be. And so I transitioned from livestock to meat judging, which then Clarendon College was and is a feeder school to Texas Tech University. And that was my 10-year dream, was to be a Red Raider. So when I figured that out, I then transferred over to Texas Tech, where I was on the meat judging team. We were reserve national champions. And then another door opened, and I had an opportunity to coach an undergraduate meat judging team at West Texas A&M. And as I was working on my master's, I also coached a meat judging team. And then Texas A&M University reached out and said, hey, would you be interested in pursuing a PhD in meat science and coaching a meat judging team? And, and Texas A&M is a big school, very well known for their sound, strong animal science, agricultural programs, including meat science. So as life would have it, one door opened after another. And then I went, once I finished with my PhD, I was asked by Texas Tech University to come do a 1-year postdoc. So that means that I'm no longer a student, but I'm not a faculty. I'm the in-between. And that's really where you can really learn the behind the scenes of faculty, departments, and so forth. Well, then 1 year after that, they hired me on as a visiting assistant faculty member for the next 3 years. Then, and I was just in meat science. I was teaching undergraduate classes, but primarily to students who did not come from an agricultural background. They often would come to class at the beginning of the semester to try to teach me something, but in reality, my job was just to throw the facts at them and let them draw their own conclusions. And then, here I am at Ohio State. Been here 6.5 years. One of the best decisions I've made. And I know that was kind of a long-winded response there, but my point in sharing all that with you was, just allowing things to happen led me to where I am today. And I had no plan, to be very honest. Again, I wasn't even going to college. I was going to be perfectly happy staying in South Texas. But again, sometimes, we don't always have that choice.
Now, why did you decide to work in university and research and education compared to maybe working in the industry in a packing facility?
Well, I did, let me think. I did 2 internships at 2 large scale meat processing plants. One of them was a Cargill in Freona, Texas, where they harvested and processed beef, feedlot more so. And my second internship was with Premium Standard Farms in Milan, Missouri, which was a pork plant. And so I was able to get a taste of the industry, and which was a phenomenal experience for me. And the money was good, not gonna lie, but I also realized that I had a passion for teaching and educating. And I knew that I knew from the beginning that I was on a mission, and I am on a mission in this lifetime, and that's to serve. My goal is to leave this place better than when I entered, because I feel that in order to make this world go round, we need to take care of the future, educate, empower, teach, guide, mold, whatever it is. And I love interacting with people during the teaching moment, the education piece, seeing that aha moment happen right in front of my eyes is very rewarding, I have to say. And then to watch my students leave our program and blossom, where I'm able to call friends in our meat industry for one thing, and then the conversation will evolve into, hey, your student so and so, is doing a phenomenal job here, and that is very rewarding for me and for our program.
Can you tell us a little bit about your current role at Ohio State and some of your responsibilities on a day-to-day basis?
So I'm currently an associate professor of meat science, where I hold a 50% appointment in teaching and a 50% appointment in extension. I'm also one of 2 extension meat specialists for the state of Ohio. So what does a typical day look like for me? Well, it depends on the semester. So for the fall, upcoming fall, I'll teach 2 classes. One of them is an introduction to meat science, where I just checked my enrollment, and there are 45 students, which that has not been the case. When I first started 6.5 years ago, we had maybe about 12 to 15. And I'm happy to say that it's grown. But only downfall is I have to move classrooms. I will teach that 3 times a week. And the second class I teach in the fall is the meat carcass evaluation class. That's intended to help evaluate carcasses, beef, pork, and lamb, along with wholesale cuts, in preparation of a meat judging team. Now, not everybody in the class decides to be on the meat judging team, but at least they're able to leave the class with more knowledge than not. I have a teaching and an extension appointment. My extension has picked up quite a bit, especially with our pandemic. My role as the extension meat specialist is to help problem solve, help serve meat processors and some of our livestock producers. For example, a meat processor may call me and say, I'm having an issue with a certain product. I'll ask him or her to send me pictures. I will diagnose it on my end, and then we'll have that conversation on the causes, the problem, the causes, and so forth. But I also work with youth, 4-H and FFA, extracurricular activities in the form of meat judging, skillathon, and I also will judge carcass shows for our counties here in the state of Ohio. I do oversee the meat judging team here at Ohio State. I do have a coach who primarily coaches. I coordinate things, I pay for things, right? And I will travel with the team. I also advise the Meat Science Club here at Ohio State. We're still trying to get back from the pandemic, the students and so forth. So, but usually my day will start at about 7:30 or 8. And it's not always in my office. Sometimes it's a phone call that a processor needs to visit about. at 7:30, because they start early. And usually I'll end at about 8 o'clock at night, sometimes 9. Sometimes I don't get enough done during the day, so I have to stay after hours to play catch up and take care of other responsibilities. I'll tell you that there's more laughter that happens in a day than not. And that's because a lot of my students are with me. We're in that meat lab a lot in 35-degree temperatures. We're in the classroom a lot. And I've learned that if our students are having fun, they're learning. And if you talk to any of my students, they'll tell you I'm a big kid at heart, because it's important to me that they enjoy what they do.
Now, how do you think specifically, how did FFA prepare you for a career? Was it those public speaking and conversation abilities, or was it those practical judging experience, starting with livestock and eventually to meat science?
Well, I'll tell you, I have to give credit to my ag teachers, Mr. Juan Flores and Mr. Humberto Garcia. They were very strict. They had high expectations, but they were very fair at the same time. There was no doubt that they were in your corner, but the structure that they presented, with the expectations, only led to respect. And that's what we had. That's what I had. But, one thing that they both were very good at was giving us some slack with that rope and allowing us to try things on our own, and failing when they knew we were going to fail before we did. But then talking about the outcome of that so-called failure, when it really wasn't a failure, it was a learning opportunity. That right there, in addition to my upbringing with my parents, because they had their own structure too, a combination of my upbringing along with the FFA, teachers that we had, and they not only showed us how to evaluate, not for the competition, it was truly for real world application. That was their main thing. Don't train for the competition, train for that job. But I will say though, I'm originally from South Texas and I'm now in Ohio. That's roughly a 21-hour drive, just because I've done it. I don't think that if I was not in FFA, I would have had other opportunities like I did to help prepare me for what was coming my way. And that's getting out of my comfort zone, trusting in the process, because that's exactly what I've done without even realizing I was doing it, but also being comfortable of leaving my comfort zone. And it all started with FFA for me.
Now, what does education look like in meat science at Ohio State? You guys have undergrad, graduate, and doctoral programs in the department?
So yes, in the Department of Animal Sciences, we offer undergraduate, master's, and a PhD. Now, with the undergraduate, it's primarily animal science. We have industries, which is more of a hands-on, more production. We have animal sciences, biosciences, which is more of the pre-veterinarian route. We have the vet tech major, and also nutrition. Meat science is offered, but it's offered as a minor, and that's the largest minor that we have today in our department. So what does it look like? Well, as an undergraduate in meat science, you would first take an introduction to meat science class, and that's with me. That's the quarterback to the rest of the undergraduate classes. After this introduction to meat science, then you have the option of taking processed meats. You can take the meat carcass evaluation class and harvest and fabrication, also known as food animal processing. There is one class that is usually everyone's favorite, and that's the barbecue science class. We do have a senior capstone course. It's called Branded Meats. And we do offer an advanced meat science class for undergraduate and graduate students. So that would be the gist of our program. The minor was designed and organized in a way that when our students left our program, even with the minor, they had enough tools in their toolbox to compete for that job. That was the whole intention of that minor.
Let's talk a little bit about the industry. What does meat science industry look like? Maybe start us from the farm all the way to the processing plant, and maybe careers that are involved in that would be applicable to an animal science major or a meat science major?
So that's a very interesting question, because one of the goals, objectives that I've had since I've been here in Ohio is trying to connect the live animal piece with the meat products, because for some reason there's a disconnect in the two. When we talk about market animals, as soon as they hit the ground to the time that they hit that finished weight and they're ready for market, we need to understand that it doesn't stop there. That means that everything that we do on the live end, with our live practices, can and will have an impact on that meat quality. So once that processor has that animal and it's a carcass and is ready to be processed, understand that the processor cannot return the animal at this point. So they have to work with what they have. But the key point here is that animal science and meat science are truly connected. And the sooner that we realize that, and the sooner that we burn that into our minds, the livestock side, again, going back to livestock practices, is crucial to the meat product, meat quality side. Now, when it comes to my area in meat science and how does that play into the industry? Well, there is a lot of the fundamentals of meat science at play here. We just don't explain it in a very formal classroom setting. It's very informal, more of a conversation versus instruction, okay? 75% of my questions, the problems or the challenges that I have to problem solve, can be answered with 75% of the basics of meat science that I teach in Introduction to Meat Science. If we have a good firm grip on the foundation, we're going to be just okay. So it's everywhere, from color to muscle pH, the impacts of animal handling on meat quality, quality defects, everything relates to the industry, everything.
Now, you just mentioned a few research topics that I see in my head. What has your research been focused on? Because you've gone through undergrad, graduate, and PhD studies, and of course, you had to finish some dissertations and research in there. What does that look like over the years, or maybe what are you focusing on at Ohio State when it comes to research and development?
So I really enjoy doing the applied research. In other words, I like to learn of challenges or problems and then try to problem solve, but in the form of research, right? And my meat processors help me with this. For example, I was in a conversation roughly 3.5 years ago regarding external fat of beef carcasses, white versus yellow. And in conversation, the fact of yellow fat comes from diets high in vitamin A, because that vitamin A is responsible for giving beef carcasses that yellow color, like in cold cows and so forth. My question in conversation, once again, was, well, if it comes from a vitamin, could there be any health benefits? And are you sure it's only vitamin A? Are there not other compounds responsible that may be confounding this, right? Well, that led to me writing a grant here at Ohio State University, which is a seeds grant. It was funded, and my graduate student just graduated in December of 2020 with that particular topic as his thesis: the impacts of vitamin A fed in a low and high, diet of vitamin A. And we discovered 3 new compounds responsible for, and as far as the health benefits, that's still in question. But my common sense says, well, if a vitamin is responsible for this, then maybe we can help our producers who are selling cull cows or other type of cattle exhibiting yellow fat, a premium versus a discount, because yellow fat is not really attractive to the average consumer because it's not the norm. But if we were to educate a little bit more about it, maybe, there are some health, that's just how research goes. And so, but again, that came from a simple conversation with a processor, with a producer, with a colleague of mine, and then it turned into a research project.
What other education and training might folks in your industry need to be successful?
Well, at least for our students, there are internships. Here at Ohio State, in our College of Food and Agriculture and Environmental Sciences, we have made an internship mandatory. And that's to make sure that our students understand what they're getting into and not just go off textbooks, right? These companies, some of these large scale companies will provide some kind of community education. Some of them will provide some type of training. Of course, with COVID, that's been very difficult to do that. Small scale meat processors, I can't say they do, but I don't think they've ever been asked either. My role as one of the extension meat specialists is to help with these types of educational programs. So for example, starting late March until late May, I was offering 2-day meat cutting workshops to help with some of the challenges that our meat processors were dealing with regarding labor. I just submitted almost a half $500,000 grant about a month ago to USDA requesting funds so that I could provide myself and my team could provide a 6-day meat cutting workshop, meat cutting training as industry education. This is my way. This is our way as a land grant institution in connecting the university with communities. That's the whole point of a land grant institution. My role is to serve. I visited with several meat processors, asked what their needs are and were. That's how I formulated this grant, and God willing, come September or October, we'll find out that we were awarded. Again, it's all a connection piece. And I feel that the land grant institution is the one to connect your processors, your businesses, with the communities, with the students, with the parents, you name it, because again, we're all one. I mean, let's be real. We just need to do a better job communicating.
Now, what do specific careers like in a meat packing plant look like?
So if you were talking about large scale packing plants, most of our undergraduate students will start out as a supervisor running a line on the fabrication room, meaning that they're going to be a lead person, assuring that a certain product is being produced consistently based on the order. The other thing is you could go into in more what we call quality assurance. This is where the meat judging also comes into play, because part of meat judging involves evaluating certain wholesale cuts, subprimals, and inspecting them for certain defects, what we call specifications. Okay. The other is buying and selling meat. That's all part of what a meat science degree can do for you for these large scale packers. Working for export is another avenue, but another opportunity is working with the USDA Agricultural Marketing Service as a USDA grader. We're shorthanded right now with USDA graders, even though cameras, we primarily use more cameras and grading. The grader is still much needed. We can also go under inspection with USDA's Food Safety Inspection Service. We're shorthanded inspectors right now. We can do either with USDA, or you can go in with inspection within your state. Where here in Ohio, it's the Ohio Department of Agriculture meat inspection. But food safety is also key here. To me, that's job security at its finest, because bacteria will continue to evolve, right? Their whole point is to try to survive. And so food safety is always big. Food microbiology is always big, because there is food safety in the meat science curriculum. Because it's a part of the food process, which is meat. You could be a plant manager, you can be a plant superintendent. Any part of the plant other than your hourly employee, right, is going to be more of a managerial position.
And what should students be excited about if they're going into a career in meat science or considering one? What are the exciting opportunities right now, besides clearly the open job market?
Well, if meat science is something that just lights their fire, one thing I've learned about meat science is it's everywhere. Everywhere you turn, from in your own home, up to large scale packing plants. The one thing that we tend to do is only think of meat science, either here at Ohio State or large scale, whatever we see out in the social media and so forth. But if they really pay attention at home, it's there. You shop for products, you handle products, you cook products, you consume products. Every point I just mentioned, I talk about in my introduction to meat science class, from food safety, HACCP or sanitation, cleanliness, to degree of cooking, degree of doneness, all the way down to consumer panels. All that is meat science. So if it's something that they're interested in, I encourage them to either reach out to us here at Ohio State and let's just have those talks. I welcome students here all the time and give them and their families tours. I'll bring in my meat judging team and have them tell our story, because they're the ones who are going to recruit, not necessarily me anymore. Give us a chance just to talk. Let's have that dialogue. And if it's something you're interested in, then let's talk about future steps. And and don't forget that we also have our 2-year school up at Worcester, ATI, because I now offer the introduction to meat science class to ATI as well. So for the students who are transitioning from Worcester to Columbus, they already come with that one class under their belt, and then they can hit the ground running in meat science when they arrive.
Dr. Garcia, what skills or qualities do you have that really make you successful as an associate professor at Ohio State in meat science?
Well, the first thing I have to say is that I'm constantly reading and learning. One of the best piece of advice I received starting in my master's was, don't stop here. Go beyond the walls of learning and do your own homework and read. As a matter of fact, I was just telling my graduate student day before yesterday that he's going to have to start preparing for his thesis for his master's defense. And I said, don't rely on just what you've known up to this point. You have to stay current with industry and issues and challenges and so forth. So that right there has helped me stay on top of things. I would say another skill would be that I'm very social. Again, going back to the networking that I mentioned back in my early days with FFA, again, that started to shape me, and not being afraid of whatever that person could say or do, because we have no control. But networking, calling people, because I still call people, I just don't email them, talking to them, sometimes having those hard conversations. I'm not afraid of that because it's not personal. We have to remember that even hard conversations, they don't have to be personal. Another skill I would say is my lack of fear in failing. I'm not afraid to make mistakes. I'm not afraid to fail. Again, I use that word, but I don't really mean it in a negative way, because every time that something has not worked out, I just continue to learn. So I guess that would also be stubbornness, stubborn, hard-headed. But I know what I want. I have a vision. Everything that I do, at least the way that I work, is being able to see way ahead of me and then working backwards. And so if anything happens as I'm attempting to approach my vision, I don't take it personal. It's just more of a learning lesson, in my opinion. My work ethic, I'm a workaholic. That's a blessing and it's a curse, to be honest. I think having a balance is the best way, but not being afraid to work, not being afraid to go the extra mile. And I do a lot of that. But another skill that I don't think we ever account for is keeping laughter involved in work. Because once again, it's easier when you're having fun than when you're not. And that's what helps me move forward. Being able to recognize your strengths and your weaknesses, perfecting your strengths, but working on your weakness. That's one thing that I constantly do. I'm a big reader. No one really knows that. But usually at night when it's downtime, I'm usually reading something outside of meat science. And that could be self-help books, that could be leadership books, anything along that will help me be better. But also, I am my biggest critique, and I'm okay with that. But again, it's my way of trying to make me stronger and make me better. Let me think. I do ask a lot of questions. Not everybody's favorite thing for someone like me, right? For me to come in. But remember that if you know what you want, you cannot be fearful of asking questions. Can't.
If you could pinpoint one thing that will make students successful in meat science, what would that be? Whether career readiness or a specific class they can take or program they can become involved in?
Oh, I don't know if it's just one thing. I feel that it's, the first step is deciding that you want to do it. But you want to, not because you feel obligated. Finding the right mentors is important. Having that formal training, meaning that you go through a meat science program that's going to train you and help you strengthen your skills. That's what the program's about. But that formal training is important. Knowing the subject matter as best as possible will be a good starting point. But to be very honest, in order to be successful, networking, know people in your field, know who's good at what are their strengths, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses. An example that I give is I feel that I've done well here at Ohio State, and I'm going to continue to move forward. But what if I told you that even I have mentors? I actually have 5 that I call on, and I'll just say, hey, this came up. This is what I'm thinking. What do you think? And most days they'll say, yeah, you're on the right track. Or, I remember that I did that in 1984 or something, right? But having strong mentors is very important. And again, I feel that that's what's going to help make this world go round. We need each other. We're all one.
How can students start preparing for a career in meat science? Ohio FFA has our meat judging CDE, and you've also mentioned a lot of carcass shows and judging within Ohio, whatever county they're in. How can students start preparing for a career in meat science?
Well, FFA is a good start. I work with a lot of agri-science teachers in the state of Ohio, and we bring them here on the state competition and even during our invitational. But also talking to the agri-science teacher. Because I'm in various conversations where where agri-science teachers are interested in starting a meat science curriculum, which is music to my ears. Because once again, I want to contaminate everybody with meat science, but only because I find it so fun. I mean, there's just so much here to share, to learn, and it's never ending. But then also don't be afraid to call us. This is why we're here. And again, if a student wants to come and visit and needs to bring mom and dad and grandma and grandpa or whomever, reach out to us. We're happy to host you. We're happy to take some time, give you a tour, have the students visit with our students because, they were just there not too long ago. And I'm happy to visit with parents to talk about logistics and financial packets and so forth. That would be a good start, and if they have carcass shows, the counties offer a carcass show and I'm there, or the Buckeyes are there, or whoever from Ohio State Extension is there, be sure to ask questions because this is what it's about.
Dr. Garcia, your journey started in Texas and now all the way here at Ohio State. In the great state of Ohio. For students who might be leaving home for college or for any reason, what is your suggestion or advice to them as they continue on that journey wherever it takes them?
Oh, goodness, Jake, you're taking me back there in my mind a little ways behind. I'm very grateful for FFA. I don't know if I mentioned this, but when I first left high school I had just turned 18, I left 10 hours away from home, maybe 11. Of course, Texas is pretty big. I left from being a part of the majority, to becoming a minority. And it had everything to do with just not knowing my environment at all. I'm really glad I took a chance. Again, FFA helped me with that, though. Again, the networking, learning how to talk, how, where my eyes go, my posture, where my hands go, all through FFA that helped. I will say that I was homesick, because that's normal, but it was a very good experience in learning how to adjust outside of my comfort zone of South Texas. I will say that even that 11-year journey, because I was in college for 11 years straight, that right there prepped me for the big jump. And that big jump was moving from Texas to Ohio. That was, and I'll tell you, even today, for as much as I've experienced in life, I still become fearful. And my biggest fear was leaving my state, my home, going to an estranged place, leaving my friends and family behind, because I have wonderful family and wonderful friends. I'm blessed, to be honest. But my gut, my intuition, my heart was telling me, be obedient to the call and take a chance. Take a chance. And in my opinion, why not? What's the worst that can happen? It doesn't go well and I go back home. Okay, right? But at least I tried. So the ability to have traveled as much as I did, starting with FFA, then through college, led me here. And so what I often tell students today is, you owe it to yourself to take a chance on yourself. See what you can do. Get out of your comfort zone, because that comfort zone is not going to be there forever. Eventually, you're going to have to adjust, make some adjustments in your life. And that eventually is going to lead to change. Change is inevitable. So why not take a chance on yourself? Go see some things, go learn some things, learn different philosophies. And if it doesn't work out, come back home. That's it. And so with that, my students often come to me when I'm helping them find internships, and I want to send them all the way to California, and their eyes get this big. And my typical response is, it's only for 3 months. This is temporary. Go live a little, get away from your family and friends, go meet new people, go see the Pacific Ocean, go see what livestock's about out there, and then come back. And I want to meet up with you and let's catch up. And for some reason, they trust me. I'm just kidding, but they do trust me because, as I tell them, you're not going to get any sympathy from me. I did it and everything has turned out perfectly fine, up to this point. So why not?
I love that. Take the chance and in return, receive great perspectives and experiences in your career. If you could leave one thing with students watching today, what would you leave them about the meat science industry?
Well, meat science, we can't forget that is the end. That's the finale of a food animal. That's the final step. And meat science would come in the form of meat cuts, meat quality. We also have some little chemistry, some biochemistry going on, because that meat quality is dependent on the muscle pH. There's so much to know about meat science, but it's not to be overwhelmed. My best advice, as I tell my students today, is make sense of it. It's very applicable. Switch your mentality or the focus of hearing about science and being scared about science, and really take on a more applicable approach of, oh, so the animal was horsing around or playing around and it slipped and it fell, but in about, a week or 2 weeks later, when I saw the carcass, there was a big bruise on it. Yeah. Oh yeah, because it was playing around with another animal and it fell, and that's where the bruise came from. right? Those are the connections that I'm talking about, of being very applicable, because it's not hard. We make it hard because that's what we do best as humans. It's very, very everyday in and out of meat science. Now, there is a lot of science involved up once you reach a certain point, right? But if you have a good grip on that foundation, you're going to be perfectly fine.
Well, Dr. Garcia, thank you for sharing your experience with Ohio FFA members. It's exciting to learn more about your career and career opportunities in meat science. FFA develops our potential and helps us discover our talent through hands-on experiences, which gives us tools to achieve real-world success. If you're interested in pursuing a similar career path to the one highlighted in this video, there's a couple ways in which you can get started. One option to dive in and learn more is through a supervised agricultural experience. While completing an SAE, you will cultivate valuable employability skills while gaining work experience as a volunteer, paid employee, or maybe even as your own boss. To learn more, talk to your ag teacher or visit saeforall.org. In addition, through career development events, you can put your knowledge to the test. Ohio FFA offers more than 40 CDEs. Here are a few CDEs that can help you further explore this career path. Ask your FFA advisor for more information about how to get involved. As FFA members, it's important for us to start making these connections and finding future possibilities that align with our interests. I hope that you enjoyed this episode of Ohio FFA Career Connection, which is made possible by Ohio Corn and Wheat. Thanks for tuning in.